I have tested a lot of gear over the course of these years that I've been working as a YouTuber. But if I'm going to be completely honest with you, most of it actually ends up back in the drawer or gets sent back to the brand. So this video is not going to be about the best gear that you can buy for the money, but more so the gear that I'd personally buy again with my own money because it's so freaking good. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is going to be the cameras. And I'm going to split this up in 3 different segments. The first is going to be no budget. Like, you can spend any money that you want on any camera that you want. And in my case, that would be the Sony A9 III. I don't want to nerd down too much on why I think it's one of the best cameras, but I've been using it for over 1.5 years at this point, and I just think that the camera in and by itself provides me with everything that I would like to have in a hybrid camera. It is fast, it is incredibly versatile, and it has a global shutter, but it also has a 24 megapixel sensor, which I think is kind of the sweet spot when it comes to saving storage, but also getting enough resolution so that you can crop in on the images. And when it comes to the actual video features, it has everything that I need to have in a hybrid camera in my setup. It's basically one of those cameras where you don't think, you just use it. But again, it does come at a high price point. If I was looking for a camera that was video mainly and not having the best kind of hybrid out there, then I'd look into the Sony FX3. It is incredibly reliable. It's built like a freaking tank. And the image quality that is coming out of this thing is so freaking good. It also has something that is called dual native ISO, which means that if you go into a low light scenario, you can just crank the ISO up to 12,800 and you're still gonna have a clear image that you can use in your videos, which I think is sick. And as I said in my previous video, this is the camera that I use whenever I sit here on the desk, whenever I need to record something that is a little bit longer, but I want to have something that is reliable, where I just press the button. I don't think about it anymore. That is where this camera comes in. If you are on a tighter budget, but you still want to have something that is similar to the Sony FX3, go for the Sony ZV-E1. It has the same sensor as the FX3. It is smaller, it is cheaper, and incredibly capable for the size. But it has a downside, and that is that it overheats if you're shooting longer takes. I think that when I tried to shoot a longer take than 45 minutes, it just shut off, and then I couldn't work with the camera anymore. But as long as you understand the limits of the ZV-E1, I still think it's actually one of the most capable cameras that you can get for the price. Moving on to lenses. And I'm gonna be honest and say that I don't rotate lenses anymore. I kind of found the lenses that I liked, and then I've been sticking with them for the last 2.5 to 3 years at this point. One of the lenses I've actually had for 7 years. But the number one lens that I think that anyone should get is the 1635. Maybe the GM1 or the GM2, it doesn't really matter. But this is the lens that I use 95% of the time whenever I'm making my videos. It gives you a very wide field of view at 16 millimeters, but then also allows you to crop in to 35. It's wide, it's flexible, but it's also predictable. And that is super important when you're working with a lens on a daily basis. Next up is the 70-200 GM Mark II. This is not like an everyday lens. This is a lens with a specific purpose. It allows you to get those longer shots and gives you a little bit of compression. And also, you can really blow out the background when you go up to 200 millimeters. And then we have the 50 millimeter f1.2 GM. This is my top pick for thumbnails and sweet looking B-roll when I'm making these kind of videos, but also for family photos and any sort of detailed shots that I take here in the studio. And the look that you get at 1.2 is unreal. And last lens is my all-time favorite, the 24 millimeter f1.4 GM lens. Like, I've had this lens for over 7 years at this point, and it has provided me with so much value over these years, and I still love it to this day. Being able to have a 24 millimeter lens with a 1.4 aperture means that you can have a really wide field of view, but still have a blurry background. And I think that that is very hard to find in a lot of lenses. All my B-rolls have been shot with that lens, so I don't even need to talk about that lens anymore and why I love it so much, but it's just a great overall lens. But it's starting to get a little bit old at this point, so Sony should really update that and give us a 1.2. All of these things that I'm talking about is going to be very expensive for someone that is just starting out, and sometimes you just can buy a camera to get started or a lens to get started. But eventually you're going to reach a point where you're going to be like, well, I could buy this lens, or I could spend a little bit more money and get this lens. And I highly recommend you spend a little bit more money. If you don't like the lens or the camera, you can just sell it. Next up is audio, which is incredibly boring to talk about, but also necessary, because if it fails, you're gonna be mad as hell if you're sitting there recording a 45-minute long YouTube video without any sort of audio that you can use, so you need to sit down and record it again. Yeah, it has happened to me plenty of times. The microphone that you're listening to right now is mounted directly onto my camera, and it's the Sony ECM B1M. The reason that I like this microphone so much is because it requires no batteries, no cables, just plug it in, and it sounds like this. Simple. I've used it for over 5 years at this point, and it's incredibly boring, but it works so freaking well. It's one of those things that I never think about, and that is why I use it every single day. But I also use the DJI Mic 3, which is my go-to wearable microphone, because sometimes you need to have great audio when you're further away from the camera, and it's incredibly reliable, provides me with great freaking audio quality, and there's no drama. For me, one of the most important things is that I don't need to babysit my audio, because I just want it to sound good as soon as I press the record button. That's it. Moving on to the unsexy but oh so important gear, such as cables. Thunderbolt cables can do everything that you throw at it, basically. You have the power, you have the video, you have the data transfer, and everything combined without actually being throttled. And that is why I think they're so freaking important. And then we have SSD drives, which is something that I've been using for the last 5 years at this point as well. I did use the Samsung T7 drives for a very long time, up until I got the SanDisk ProBlade Mag, together with SanDisk ProBlade Station, and the SanDisk ProBlade Transport. It's a setup that has worked incredibly well over the last 2 years. And then we have the memory cards, which I think is incredibly important, because this is something that you use every single time that you use your camera. So don't cheap out on these. If you're going for an SD card, make sure that you go for a V90 SD card, because then you can maximize the features in your camera. If you were to buy a V60 SD card, you might not be able to shoot in 4K 120, for example. I personally prefer the CF Express cards because they have been so incredibly reliable over the years that I've been using them. They've been in the washing machine, in the dryer, they've been outside for a day, they have been driven over with my car, and it's actually nothing short of amazing that they still work. I also recommend to have a tech organizer, such as my own product, the CYB-ORG. Basically, it allows you to keep everything controlled when you're traveling, and all the small tiny parts that you bring with you that needs a space gets its own space. When it comes to camera bags, I've been using the Nomatic and Peter McKinnon 25-liter camera bag. I think it's a perfect size because it kind of forces you to bring the things that you need, not the things that you want, if that makes sense. If you've ever packed a camera bag, then you also know that 35-liter camera bag gets heavy as shit. I also recommend you spend enough money so that you actually get a good tripod. Don't buy too cheap, because then it's just going to be wobbly. The one that I use is the Peak Design travel tripod carbon fiber, which is also something that I've been using for 4 years at this point, and it works amazing. I will say that if you mainly shoot vertical content, then you might look into getting another tripod, because the ball head joint on that thing is kind of weird. But as long as you're shooting horizontal, it works just fine, man. And the last thing is going to be a 3D printer. It unlocks so many different possibilities once you have it, but it's also kind of hard to explain how good it is unless you actually have it so that you're able to print things on your own. One of the things that I like the most about the Bambu Lab ones that I have is that you have Maker World. So you can just go in there, find the exact print that you want to have, and then just print it from your phone. It's that simple. You don't need to do anything else. It just starts up, prints it out, and then all of a sudden you have a new thing that you printed. For example, all the hooks that I got on my IKEA Scottis is 3D printed. I didn't buy one single hook from IKEA. And that is the gear that I buy again in a heartbeat. So I really hope that you found some value in this video. And if you did, please do give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe as well, because I would love to see you in the next video. Talking about the next video, should that be the gear that I regret buying or something else? Do drop a comment down below. Peter from Sweden, or should I say Professor Peter from Sweden, is saying goodbye.